Hi everyone, welcome to the Empower Sounds podcast. My name is Mahika, and this podcast is all about sharing the inspiring stories of women from all walks of life, celebrating their successes, and delving into the mindset behind their missions and their journeys. Today I'm joined by Saloni, singer, songwriter, and musician, featured on the Rolling Stone, BBC Asian Network, and many more. Saloni, welcome to the Empower Sounds podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Can you please start by introducing yourself?
Yeah, I'm Saloni. I'm a singer-songwriter based in the UK. I have Indian heritage, but I was born and brought up in the UK, and my main goal is fusing the two genres, my two different cultures that I was brought up believing I fit into one or the other, but I really didn't. So I was like, okay, now's my time to kind of bring the two together.
That's amazing. And can you please let us know about what inspired you to pursue music, and how did your early life experiences shape your passion for music and for your culture?
Sure. So funnily enough, my passion for music didn't actually come from my family. No one is musically orientated at all. They don't know any composers. They don't know any, like, barely any songs and stuff. So it came to a real shock when my parents actually heard me sing. About 4 years old, they heard me singing A Christmas Carol because someone at a church asked me to sing it. And so I was like, okay. So I sang it, and that was the first time they heard me. And so from then, they kind of saw the potential and put me into singing lessons. They put me into Indian classical Carnatic lessons. And that's kind of where I built my base. And then I grew up singing that a lot, singing on stage. And then as I went into like secondary school and primary school and stuff like that, I started to actually find out what Western music was, because it wasn't played much at home. It was always Tollywood, Bollywood sort of things at home. And that was the first time I'd heard Western music. And that's when I started loving like Taylor Swift, Bruno Mars, Shawn Mendes, all of that stuff. And I used to like sing at assemblies, and it was my way of kind of delving into my Western culture. And I did start to kind of stray away from my Eastern side. So I would either do one or the other, but never the both. And it was only after I left school that I realized, why can't I bring the two together? I've seen people like Zach Nye, Origin do this, and I'm like, that's my inspiration to want to be able to do that as well, but be the female person up in the industry. And that's kind of my journey. And my love for music has just come from listening to things, and I just love singing. I love going on stage. I love performing live. I love singing to an audience. And it's just a passion that I've just kind of wanted to carry on.
And now, how do you choose the elements from each culture that you want to incorporate in your music? Because there's so many things, and sometimes they're different, sometimes they're complementary, but sometimes you have to really like pick and choose.
100%. And I think with being brought up in the UK, I've had a lot of, Western upbringing, and the music that I listen to, like the R&B pop style, is what I've been such a huge influence to me. But I've just been told like my voice sounds good when I sing like the Bollywood melodies and everything. So what I do is with my music is the beats, like the just without the instrumentation, like just sorry, without the vocals and everything. I tend to take the Western sort of beats, and instead of making it Bollywood, instead of using like, I don't know, like the tanpura and stuff like that, instead of making it classical or anything, I kind of use the Western beats, the Western guitar, piano, all of that stuff. And then I bring in the Southern element when I'm singing. I can sing in 10 different languages. So that's where I try and bring that into my music, because I love all the sort of languages of South Asia. They're just beautiful in their own way. So I sing like a mix of English and a South Asian language, and that's how I sort of bring the two cultures in together.
That's incredible. Wait, so which languages can you speak?
I can speak only three, but I can sing in more, because with singing, it's like as long as you can kind of pronounce the vowels and kind of get it checked with other people, then it's fine. Speaking wise, I can only speak English, Telugu, and Hindi, but I can understand like Hindi, Punjabi. I can understand Telugu, obviously. But the thing is that I found out about South Asian languages is that if you know one from one area, you can sort of grasp the other ones. So growing up, I learned Carnatic, and my teacher was actually Tamil. So that's where I sort of learned like the Tamil songs and Tamil movie songs. She would teach me and stuff like that. So I learned the Tamil from there. Telugu was obviously just from home. I was brought up speaking that. I went to India. I would speak that with my family because they didn't understand English. So then that's how Telugu came about. And Kannada is very similar to Telugu. So like pronunciation wise, I don't understand anything. I read the translations off the internet or I ask family friends, but the pronunciation of the words is sort of similar. Same goes for Malayali and Tamil. The pronunciation is pretty similar. And then going to the north of India, like I knew Hindi because I was watching like movies and stuff, and I picked it up from like Bollywood films and everything. But if you know Hindi, you can easily like somewhat understand Punjabi. And I just love Punjabi music, especially once I came to uni. It was just a whole new thing of Punjabi music. So I picked it up from there. If someone speaks Punjabi to me slowly, I can understand it. But it's similar pronunciations as long as I can get it checked. Same goes for Marathi and Bengali. And yeah, I think those are the languages.
That's incredible. Wow. You mentioned briefly that your style and your taste in music has evolved as you've added influences throughout the years. How has your music that you consume and that you create changed since you've come to university and now you've graduated, if I'm correct?
Yep, it all graduated, all good. Yeah, how has that changed? I think it's just with the people that are around me. For example, in school, it was very westernized. I think also back then, the awareness about South Asian heritage just wasn't there. I know it was only 4 years ago, but I can see a huge, huge difference. I don't know if that's like a generational difference or if that's just the fact that I've moved from one area to another area, moving from like Milton Keynes to London. That's probably I've been like surrounded by some more ethnic sort of communities in London, so maybe that's why. I don't know. But I do think social media is a big sort of influence to that because like South Asians have become more aware through social media, like TikTok influencers and stuff like that. So when I was in school in Milton Keynes, it was very British music, like American music sort of thing, your country, pop, R&B sort of stuff. And that I was either doing that or I was listening to whatever I was listening at home, which was like Shreya Ghoshal or just sing and stuff like that. And I would never really bring that into school because I was you could kind of say embarrassed of it because no one really appreciated it at school. And I was actually the most cultured there, but I felt weird being that. So I kind of stayed away from it. But then once I came into university, I saw this whole group of other British Asians that just were like me. And like they weren't too cultured, but they weren't too westernized either, which was just what I was. And that's how it sort of changed. But actually, sorry, going back a step, in between, I took a gap year. And I think that's where there was a lot of self-realization and like finding myself, like finding who I truly am, because there was no one around me. It was just me working on my music, and also COVID hit at that time, so I was just in my family sort of thing. And that's when I really started to figure out what I wanted to do with my music and what I wanted to bring across in my music. Because that was actually the time where I decided to do more mashups and mashing up the Eastern and the Western in terms of covers. And eventually I brought that into my music, original music.
That's incredible. What is your creative process like then when you decide to do a mashup? Do you like listen to lots of things and you like save them and make like a kind of mood board, or is it like spontaneous, or is it more planned? How do you do that?
I'll be honest with you, every single song, every single mashup, every single cover is so different as to how it comes about. So there's no one set way. Everyone works in their different ways, and even when I'm working from one producer to another producer, things change because you're collaborating with different people. Usually though, with like mashup covers, they just kind of come in the flow. I'm just singing along to something, and then suddenly another line from another song comes in, and I'm like, oh, okay, that would work well. But sometimes it doesn't work. It's just that one line that works. So you've got to try and figure it out. But when I started off and I didn't really know many producers, I would use like a backing track of an existing song and then just try and sing another song over that. Like an example of that when I did it for the first time by myself was actually Senorita and Tujhe Bula Diya. And I sang Senorita. I took the backing track of Senorita, and somehow like the sound, like the melodies of Tujhe Bula Diya just fit in. And so I was like, okay, that's cool. So then I was able to do that when it was songs like that. There was another cover that I did, which was like Gunguru and Get Lucky. And if you listen very closely, the drum, like the guitar pattern is exactly the same. And they must have somehow like Bollywood must have somehow taken some bits of Get Lucky and just sampled it or something, but they sounded exactly the same. And so I was able to put those two together. And it's just stuff like that. And more recently, when I've actually worked with producers to make these mashups, they then give me a beat. And then and when it's a beat, you can fit anything to it. You can really just try and work something out that way. So when it's an original beat, it's a lot easier. But yeah, back in the day, I was taking backing tracks and trying to fit something on top of another, which was a lot harder.
That sounds so fun. It reminds me of my childhood because me and my brother were quite musical as well, and we used to play this thing called the beat game. And
Okay.
he plays instruments, and I used to sing when I was a child. And so he would just like play some random beat, and the game was I had to try and fit as many songs as I could on top of it.
Oh, that's so
But
cute.
I really enjoyed it. But for me, I never had any training. It was just an intuitive process. Apart from your singing training, have you had any other training in instruments or in music theory that have helped inform like the technical side of your music?
Yeah, sure. So singing was my only true passion. I That was the only thing I ever wanted to do. But being in a brown family and everything, they're pushing you into as many extracurricular activities as you can get. So I was put into like I did keyboard for like a few grades, but I really just didn't like it. I think because I was doing grades, it just put the enjoyment out of it. And I just didn't like playing the keyboard. So once I got to grade 4, I basically gave up. But only recently have I been realizing like the value of it. So like I go back and I still have the keyboard at home. So like I play chords and stuff when I want to do a cover or something, but it's very, very basic. It's not high level or anything. And same, like you'd have to cover theory in the when I was doing keyboard. So I know my theory in the sense of like the notes and like the chords and stuff like that, but I'm not great. So my key strength is my singing. But if I need to like figure out a key or like a chord progression or something, I can try it out slightly.
That's really cool. And since you say singing is your main passion, it's your like main kind of thing you focus on, are there any daily practices that you use to ensure that your voice is healthy, and that like it's a kind of muscle that you exercise like regularly to make sure that it's like as strong as it can be?
100%. It's just as any like if a sports person is going to the gym all the time or like working out, stretching and everything, you've literally just got to do the same with your vocals. That like that's a muscle that you need to train. So it's vocal exercises all the time. I do the silliest ones. I'm sure like my flatmates are like, oh, what are you doing? Because it's like you're trilling your like lips, you're like humming or like you're like up and down. But yeah, those are all essential. Like it's just warming up and then stretching your voice, and the more you do it, like the more you can extend your range as well with what you're singing in. So it really just helps to do it as much as you can. I try to do it every day. Doesn't always happen, but I do it at least like four to five times a week.
That's so dedicated. You mentioned your flatmates. How have your friends contributed to your music, both growing up and now? And also, how have other people, like, have you ever dealt with hate or negative comments, and how have you overcome them? Basically, how have people influenced your music?
Yeah, sure. Friends have been a huge part of it. Friends and family, because when I felt low, they'd be there for me, especially my family, my parents, but also friends at school. Like we talk about hate and everything. Being one of the only like cultured person singing at school just didn't cut it at school. It was like the weird thing to do. Like it was, I don't know if it's a topic that I should touch, but it's sort of like there'd be Caucasian people singing in assemblies and it'd be completely fine. But it was just the one brown girl that was singing. It was like, oh, what's she doing? And they'd make fun of you. And even if it would be behind your back. And I would hear these things around, but my friends being there to support me and just be like, don't listen, whatever, like, it will be fine. That does help. And obviously it does get to your head a bit. And there were so many times I'm just like, why am I doing this? Like my parents were the ones that pushed me to sing in assembly, and I was like, I don't really want to do it. But them pushing me has actually gotten me to where I am now. Because if I didn't continue doing that at school, I don't think I'd be doing music now, because it's like a progress of like, regularly singing in front of an audience and stuff like that. And it was only once I got to uni, for example, I actually felt like I belonged, and people all around were being supportive. There wasn't hate around me. It's more now hate on social media. But that's when like it's starting to do well, because like, everyone's going to be nice and supportive when you're all like when you're going as you're flowing, even if that's even a phrase. But when things are like high, like shooting up, that's when the hate sort of comes in. it's not always hate. Sometimes it's constructive criticism, which is really good, because then I'll take that. There were times when someone would say like my pronunciation isn't good, and I'm like, okay, cool, I will work on my pronunciation for this, because that's someone being like, constructive and giving me something I can work on. But if it's someone just going, oh, that sounds terrible, like I'm not going to listen to that, because I know, like, that's when that's just general hate that you've got to kind of take with a pinch of salt and move on. Those are the things that you shouldn't be dwelling on. So I think all of it has been just a learning curve, and has just been like, people trying to crash you down, but you'll kind of go up as you go, because it's like, it's just showing your resilience every time. And this was I actually wrote a song about it when I was all in the Western scene, when I was just writing like English music. It was in like year 13 or something, where I wrote a song called I'll Strive. So it's like, no matter who's trying to push you down, you'll still try and like, you'll push through it and get to where you want to be, and sort of prove everyone wrong, sort of thing, in the least shove it in your face way. But it's a way of saying that I'm gonna continue doing what I love to do, no matter what anyone else is gonna say.
That is so powerful. And I think that that's something that people can take into every aspect of their life if they're wanting to do something where they put themselves out there, not just in the music industry, but especially in the music industry. Aside from overcoming hate, have you faced any other challenges as a musician, and how have you overcome them?
There have been, I think a lot of it can also come from within. It's like self-doubt, or am I going in the right direction? Not because other people are saying something. I have slowly managed to kind of find my way around that, and just kind of turn a blind eye, but also just take it with a pinch of salt sort of attitude now. But the things that get to me now, which is what I'm working on, is like me thinking, if I have it to make it, or like, I know that I know my talent and everything, but the industry is so competitive, and it's finding the right opportunities, the right connections, and just persevering through it. Like, there's so many times you see, and this goes for anything, not just the music industry, but anywhere. Some things look like an overnight success, but it's really not. If you see before, there's like 10-15 years of hard work, and then you'll see that person. So it's more obvious in the music industry, or like the acting, like the arts industry, because that's what's publicly faced. So like, you'll see like an overnight hit, but it's not an overnight hit. They've had like 15 singles before that have just no one's heard of. It's just again, I'm going back to the same thing about like, it's you persevering to get to the top, and that's the stuff you've got to remind yourself of, and that's the stuff that I try to remind myself of. And it's good that I'm saying, like, I could say it out loud, but it's actually really applying that to myself. So like, right now I'm telling you, oh, you just persevere, get through all of these singles, and then you'll get that hit. But in reality, it is hard to say that to myself. Like, I've had, I don't know, 10-15 singles already maybe, and I'm just like, am I doing the right thing? I don't know, should I keep going on? So it's being able to get through that mental rut of yourself. That's one thing I've tried, like, I've struggled with, and I'm getting through, but it's definitely a hardship that's there.
That is for sure so hard, overcoming imposter syndrome and like comparing yourself to yourself and your expectations of yourself. What is one milestone that you're really like looking forward to achieve going forwards, and something that you want to hit, like not just in terms of numbers, but like a creative milestone?
Creative milestone. I do eventually want to. I want to have a sellout concert where I'm the headliner. I've not even touched doing a headline concert myself yet, but that is definitely a goal that I want to go to, because that's literally showing like the fans that I have that are converting, spending on me, and putting their faith in me, and spending their time and money on me. So that is definitely something I am working towards.
That's incredible. And can you tell me a little bit more about the difference in experience? Like, obviously there's a huge difference between performing live and like performing in a recording studio, and then your music being released, because you don't really see your audience, so it's like a lot more removed. But what does that feel like, having a huge audience and then having the same amount of people listening online and streaming your music?
So I personally prefer live, because you're seeing everyone's reactions there and then, and I don't know how to explain it. It's just it's a surreal feeling when you're on stage performing, and there's all these people there, and like, you're just singing your heart out. Like, I love that experience, and it's like a, I don't know, not dopamine, I guess, but like it's just that high feeling when you're kind of there on stage performing to a huge audience that are like singing back at you, cheering along, clapping along, and it's just the best feeling ever. That said, it's also nice to be online because you'll get the comments coming in, or you'll see the streams going up. But I think the most satisfaction is when it's live.
Yeah, for sure. And how did you go from performing like in school and stuff to like basically from hobby to making it your vocation and like kind of making it more professional and like legitimate? How did you establish yourself as an artist in the industry?
So only in the last couple years, I'd say it's taken it to the professional level. Where national radio is playing me, BBC Asian Network have been supporting me hugely. I've been featured on Rolling Stone, and seeing all these like, you know, media coming to me, people like, if my name's said in BBC, it's somewhat known now. And that's kind of when you know that, like, you know, you're in the industry, you're in the ins now in a way. I'm collaborating with people that I used to look up to as a kid, like listening to their music. So seeing all of this is when I'm starting to realize, okay, I'm sort of on my way now. Like, I'm nowhere where I want to be or where everyone else is, but I know that I'm on my way. Whereas before it was like, it was just something that I was doing when I was at school. So I would perform at pubs, I'd perform at school assemblies, I'd perform at some festivals. Whereas now I'm charging for these festivals, I'm charging to play here. So that's when you sort of know that you're taking it as a profession and not just a hobby.
And was there a moment where you decided that you had to take it to the next level, or did someone tell you like, listen, you should take this, like you should do this? Or was it something that you had to like intuitively be like, I'm good enough, I need to pursue it now further?
So as a kid, I've always wanted to do something that wasn't the norm. Like, I didn't want to do a 9 to 5 job. And when I knew that I like, when my parents put me to singing, that was that additional thing that could mean that I wouldn't have to do a 9 to 5 sort of thing. Or even though I say it's not a 9 to 5, it ends up becoming like a 5 to 9 or whatever. Like, it will take up your entire life. It's not just a 9 to 5, but it's something you love doing, right? So I think when I was a kid, I enjoyed singing, and I wanted to do something that was different to everyone else in the world. And I would kind of, at school, it was just a hobby. And then I think it was more when I had started releasing my EPs. So I released an EP in 2017 when I was in year 12. And then I released another one in my gap year, which was in 2019. So that was like my first sort of step in the industry. But it was also like anyone can sort of release. So it was just me just kind of putting out there, but I don't really know where I'm going. It was more in my gap year when I was doing all these covers. I was being very like putting myself out there on social media a lot, because I wanted to do live shows, but COVID came in, so I just had to shift to social media. But putting those covers out had meant that someone had seen me online, a manager that wanted to work with me. And then she put me in touch with a producer that's quite big in the industry. And that is when I started doing my mashups with, as in mashups in the sense of original mashup, bringing the South Asian side into the Western music. So that was when I released my first one, which was a mix of Punjabi and English. And that's when I was like, okay, cool, this is what I wanted to get into. Like, I saw Zach Knight, Origin, like all these other people that I watched growing up. I was like, oh, that's so cool that they're mixing the things together. And that's when I was like, okay, cool, this is what I want to do now. I want to be that representation that there was only few of us when we were younger, and also there's not much female representation, so that's that. And then on top of that, you don't see all these languages a lot in the UK, especially. It's just Punjabi, or there's some Tamil stuff as well, but there's not many other languages. So me being able to sing in 10 languages, I want to be able to bring that into my original music. And then finally is the fact that I'm Telugu. I still don't know any Telugu artists that sing in Telugu, but still infuse the Western side to it. So I just want to be able to be that representation for the younger me, the one that didn't have that representation. And that's kind of the vision I sort of have. And I've seen that as well, because there are people messaging me that are like preach to you for like representing the Telugu culture and like in the British sort of scene. And that's just, me getting those messages is validation that I'm doing something right. And it just makes me feel really good that I'm able to, you know, represent something that wasn't there for me.
For sure. And I think it's so empowering because I grew up South Asian in a very white area as well. I'm from
Mhm.
Cambridge, and there was no representation. I mean, we had like Jeho and like
Yeah, I think that was every brown kid's story.
um, but apart from that, like I think there only since maybe since coming to university, I remember I had this moment when I moved in, and at our university at UCL they have a stage on Freshers Week on the main quad, and there was like an Indian performance going on, and there was just thousands of people just standing and watching, and it wasn't just Indian people watching, and I
Yeah.
was like, this is the first time
Yeah.
in I can remember not only seeing my culture accepted but celebrated, and that was
Yeah.
like a big game changer for me, and I was like, wow, I want to contribute to that like movement for the rest of my life and my career. What representation do you wish you had growing up? Like, you've spoken about the languages, but beyond the languages, in terms of what people looked like in the music and TV industries, how people acted, like the other cultural nuances or gender nuances or experience nuances. Is there anything else you would have wished to see that you want to incorporate?
I think, I mean, I mean, it's happening now, like Bridgerton, where there's, South Asian girls there that just seemed as normal. It's not like, oh, whoa, it's a brown girl. It's that it seemed as the norm. And I think that's what I wish we had as a kid. But I'm glad that it's happening now. It's better late than never. So that's the stuff that, we need to see more of, just it being normal, not being a whoa thing. Like it just needs to start to become the norm so that it's inclusive everywhere.
For sure. And is there any artists that you want to work with in the future, that are like on your bucket list?
I mean, I've mentioned the name a couple of times now, but definitely Zack Knight because he was
For
my
sure.
inspiration to get into this, the mix scenes.
He is very, very cool. I love his music.
Yeah.
Uh, and in terms of the music video side of it, like this podcast right now is an audio format, but one of the things I really love about your music is you have some really like visually aesthetically pleasing videos, and they really, like, in terms of clothing, they show parts of like South Asian element and fashion, and there's so many creative expressions. So can you please tell us a little bit about how you incorporate your culture and your style and your identity into your music videos as well?
Yeah, sure. So it obviously depends on what the song is. Sometimes it's more on the Western side than it is on the English side. So in those times, it's just been like, your like Western sort of outfits. Sometimes it's a good mix. So for example, when I did Legacy, that was the first time I'd sort of brought my mother tongue into it. And even though it was a very R&B track, it had like that element of, it could really bring in some sort of South Asian culture here when it was like the melody of the Telugu line. And that's when I was like, okay, I'll bring in a lenga here and like, have the beauty of like the jewelry, the bangles, like the bindi. And like that's where I try to bring the Eastern culture and my South Asian culture in. I think it's just having the balance of the two. I personally like both sort of styles. My daily sort of wear is my Western wear, but I love wearing lehengas, and I feel like lehengas do suit me a lot more. Like the saris, lehengas do suit me a lot more. So it's just bringing in whenever I can. What I do try to do with my music videos when possible is work with South Asian brands, even if it is like Western sort of jewelry, but like like for example, I worked with Malvasia for Chalima, and they're like a small South Asian brand, small business, but the jewelry that they do is such a good mix of, like a fusion. You can wear it on like a normal Western, like you can wear it on a Western outfit, or you can wear it on like a lehenga. So that's where I try to incorporate I guess you can say like both of my identities in the visual appearance as well.
I think that's so unique and cool. And what I love about your music and your style is the hybridity of it, because I think a lot of people, a lot of migrants, especially in the British South Asian community, they don't fully identify as brown or Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi, and they don't fully identify as British either. And before there was only representation in one of those categories.
Yeah.
You were either very, very Indian or you were very, very white, and there was nothing in between. And I think that most of us, we live in the between. So the fact that
Yeah.
you're creating representation for that is so powerful. So you studied management at UCL.
Mhm.
How did your degree influence, one, your decisions as an artist,
Mhm.
and your business, and how you move forward as not just a musician but as a businesswoman?
100%. So management science is basically a mix of like the business management side plus the data science side. And it's good to be like commercially aware, market research, all of that stuff. And I think maybe it's not the degree in itself. I think it like there's this specific degree, but I think it might just be coming into academics on an undergraduate level, or it might just be age. But I feel like I've matured a lot. I'm more aware of everything around me. Me now knows so much more about the industry than I did like 4 years ago, even though I was a part of a artist development camp that literally took us through all the logistics, all the contracts, everything of the music business side. And it was a lot in my head, and I didn't understand much back then, even though I was given all that information, which was very valuable information. I just didn't understand it. I like I could see it surface level, but I couldn't grasp it. But now I can, and that's because, and I feel like a big part of that is because I've gone through a degree where there's a lot of critical analytical skills and just maturing in a way as well. So I'm able to understand a lot, read between the lines. So that's helped me a lot. General research is a big part. There's like in the behind the scenes of music, it's not just writing a song and singing it. You've got to research everything. Like, what companies do you want to work with? What labels do you want to work with? Where do you want to book your gigs? And it's just, as a self-managed artist, like there's a lot that people don't know there is. So we're basically everything. And having the degree has helped me with that. Maybe I could have done it without, I don't know. I wouldn't know because I've done the degree now and it's helped me. But I think also I do thrive off like academic stuff as well. I like aiming for like the top grades and everything. So I think it just helped me keep me in check for a bit. But now, because I took a gap year and it was great and all, but I did feel like I just needed some more academic in me. Like I just wanted to, study a little more. Weird that I'm saying that, but like I did want to like grasp a bit more knowledge. And now that I have that, I do feel satisfied. And I'm taking another year out just to focus on music. And then I'll decide what I want to do, if I want to, try and figure out music full time or like job and then music part time. I'll see what I want to do, but right now, as of now, I'm just doing music full time, and it feels good so far. So I feel like I've grasped the soft skills and the hard skills from the degree, which I can sort of apply to my music.
Congratulations, that sounds like such an amazing journey, both academically and as an artist and as an individual. What advice would you give to other aspiring singers, musicians, people, especially women, South Asian women who are starting their journey in the music industry?
I would say, whenever someone asks me this, I never know what to say because I feel like there's so much that you would want to pass on to someone, but you can't really say it in one sentence. Obviously, the key thing, which I guess everyone might say, is obviously just believe in yourself. Um, be wary of who you're like getting into bed with, in the sense that like in terms of music wise, or like the people that you're working with, basically be wary of that. Because especially in the music industry, I don't know if this is in every industry, but everyone will try to sell you the world, and a lot of the times it doesn't deliver, because not because they don't have the experience or something, it's just how the industry is. Like things move on really quickly, and even if it's like a great hit or something, and like theoretically it all sounds amazing, it doesn't always work that way. So just have your wits about that. And just have a close, like a small group of people that you fully trust, and that could be your parents, your best friend. And for me, that was definitely my parents. So it's just having that small support group, and if you have that, you'll be fine.
That's really powerful advice. And what are you most grateful for?
My family, my friends, my support system.
That's so beautiful, and I'm sure they are so proud of you. And as someone who is in the wider part of your community, having gone to university with you, like I can say I'm also really proud of you.
Thank you.
And you're gonna go so far, and I can't wait to say that you were part of this. Thank you for sharing your inspiring journey with my audience and with everyone who's listening. Before we wrap up, are there any upcoming projects or releases you would like to tell our listeners about, or anything that you've been working on lately? And how can people connect with you, support your music? Also, do you have any final messages for everyone who's listening?
Firstly, thank you so much for having me on this. I really enjoyed talking to you about everything, and I hope something somewhere inspires someone out there, or just motivates them to just do what they, what they love to do. And sorry, any projects and stuff. So I recently released a song called Nee Gundellounna with an artist called Bilal Shahid. He's been really helpful, helping me as an artist, and it's been really great working with him. It's a mix of Telugu, Bangla, Saloti, and English. Like the first time all those three languages have come together on one track. So please do check that out. But you can find me on all social media as Saloni Music. On Instagram, I'm Saloni_music. On Facebook and YouTube, I'm Saloni Music. TikTok is Saloni.music. But yeah, if you go to my website, www.salonimusic.com, you'll find all the social medias.
Amazing. I'll put everything in the show notes for anyone who's listening. And thank you again. That was so fun. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Empower Sounds podcast. Stay tuned every Monday for your weekly dose of inspiration and entertainment.